identity is super fragmented and it makes it hard for brands to understand the entire consumer journey. For me, there's 3 parts to this conversation. First and foremost is the identity piece, and there's a lot of different ways in the ecosystem to slice and dice that and get information, whether it's identity and identifiers, whether it's contextual information, whether it's real world signals. So that's the first kind of part of the equation, and that varies based on where consumers are living, whether that's open web, CTV, social, in-store, whatever the case may be. So that's first, our identity signals. Second for me is the inventory of where brands show up. And I think the thing about today is that identity is fragmented, but where consumers are spending time is also fragmented. So brands really need to think about showing up in all of the places and spaces where their consumers might be. So that's inventory. The third part of the puzzle that I think is super important that often gets overlooked is actually the creative component. And so it's the combination of the identity signals, knowing where your people are, who they are, being in the right place, but then showing up with the right message that's consistent, it's beautiful, it's on brand. So every time you're reaching your consumer, you're hitting them with a message that's resonating with your overall goal and message. And then the last part of that is really around measurement and how do we prove out that as we're reaching different types of people with different types of signals, with a consistent message, that it's driving results and it's ultimately impacting the brand's outcomes.
Alena, you talked about real-world signals. Let's talk a little bit about real-world outcomes. What's changed recently that's made it possible to connect TV exposure to those real-world outcomes in a meaningful, scalable way?
Yeah, CTV has come a long way, which is very exciting. And it's a huge opportunity in the programmatic ecosystem. It's a huge opportunity for brands. I think first and foremost, we have a ton more data signals in CTV. So before it was really hard to understand who we were targeting, who we were reaching, maybe where we were kind of showing up. And that's a big transition from linear TV to CTV because buyers are traditionally used to a lot of transparency in linear TV. So CTV, we have a ton more data now, which is fantastic. The other part of it is there's also scale. Like there's a lot of places and spaces in CTV where brands can reach consumers. So you have the data, you have the scale. I think one of the really exciting advancements about AI is that it's going to help us make more sense of which signals do we use, who are we actually reaching, so that we ultimately can tie that back to an outcome for a brand. I think something that I'm really excited about for CTV in particular is that we can CTV used to be an upper funnel tactic, so very much like branding and awareness, but now we're able to tie, because of the data and because of the scale, CTV exposure to more like in-store traffic, foot traffic, all of that kind of stuff. So it ties more directly to a brand's outcomes, which is really exciting because it's like less nascent.
So as linear and CTV converge, how should brands rethink success metrics to better reflect those real business outcomes?
I think we're able to totally kind of flip the lid or the switch on what we've traditionally measured in CTV. It used to be upper funnel, brand awareness, all of those types of metrics. Now, because of the influx of data and the data partners and the measurement partners that are out there and measuring these campaigns and the reach and what we're doing, brands have the opportunity to look at CTV and really take it more lower funnel, which is a really exciting opportunity because it kind of changes the way that you approach CTV. You measure, you take its impact, you apply it to other channels. I think that's also something that I'm super excited about is that CTV is a channel, but I think less and less marketers are thinking about channel strategies. They're thinking about a holistic marketing strategy, meaning what are the insights that I have from CTV? Where is that driving performance? Can I take those learnings and maybe apply it to my video strategy on desktop? Or can I take those learnings and apply it to the video that I'm running on social? And can I start to A/B test and can I scale that out? And I think that's a really exciting transition for our industry, which is the migration from channel to channel strategy to a holistic marketing strategy where a marketer can think overall, how am I reaching my end consumer and driving outcomes?
So Alena, I'd like to revisit the real world signals you mentioned a few minutes ago. Particularly, how are brands using signals like location data? It seems like the perfect real world signal.
Totally.
To understand whether TV is driving those, again, real world outcomes, and how should they apply those insights?
Well, I think the thing about location data is that we can have a better understanding of what messages, and particularly I'm passionate about the creative side coming from Kargo, but what messages, what audience segments, what inventory are working particularly well in a dedicated location. And then what are the learnings that we can take, like is a particular message driving more footfall in a particular location? Or or, is a message working more effectively there? So I think that that's, going back to your first question, which is identity is fragmented, but we have more data than ever. Location data is part of that, of how do we build that complete picture of what the consumer is doing? How do we use CTV as a lever in an overall marketer's campaign to drive that conversion, to drive that outcome? Location data is a part of it, footfall is a part of it, and ultimately, tracking product sales or the brand's ultimate outcome is what we're trying to do.
Alena, when brands can tie TV to those real outcomes, how does that change the way they plan and invest in media?
Well, it changes everything, because then it becomes, it changes from something that is I'm going to put this budget here and I know it makes an impact because it's getting in front of people's eyes and people are spending more time than ever on CTV, but I don't really know how it's impacting my bottom line. So now it's I'm running on CTV, it's an important part of my strategy, and I can prove out that it's working in A, B, and C areas. So it becomes something that is we have the data, we can alter our approach, and we can make better and smarter recommendations for our clients because we're sitting on all of this information that really wasn't available before.